Building Men is brought to you by Finish the Race Apparel, ftrapparel.com, the creators of all things building men, and by Become Stronger Industries, become-stronger.com, the creators of handmade steel maces, hammers, and other badass equipment.
There's so many things that happen neurologically, chemically, when you put yourself in a position to help another person. And by helping that other person, you level up your own accountability because now you are setting the standard. You are giving them permission. So if you start drinking again, they have permission to drink again. But conversely, by helping them, when you hold them and you continue to pull them out of their habits and their pit of despair or pain or whatever they're going through, you are constantly keeping yourself in a state of winning.
You're listening to the Building Men podcast with Dennis and Anthony Miralda, brothers on a mission
to help you become the strongest version of yourself, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Building Men podcast. I'm going to start today with a quote from a book called The Best of Successories. This book was given to me by my mentor. His name is Jack Heater. Jack was an important person in my life as I started as an assistant principal all the way back in 2005. When the Building Men program actually started. And Jack was really into character education, and he loved seeing the best in human beings and seeing this unlimited potential in human beings, especially young men, and one of the most optimistic people I've ever met. And when I was introduced to the guest that I'm going to have on today, a couple of the words from this quote, from this short quote, really stuck out to me. So it's called The Light of Optimism. Sometimes we learn the hard way that it doesn't pay to get discouraged. Positive thinking is an intellectual choice, and by keeping our eyes focused on the light of optimism, we can restore faith in ourselves and stay clear of the shadows. That quote really stuck out to me for a couple of reasons. One, going through difficult times in our lives and kind of picking ourselves up and understanding the importance of resiliency and perseverance, but also really understanding our shadows and being in touch with that shadow side of ourselves in a true, authentic way can help us kind of get rid of the demons that are there in our heads. So I'm going to introduce our guest right now. His name is Nick Alfano. He is a serial entrepreneur, former attorney, the CEO of the program, and he's a badass dude. Nick, welcome to the podcast, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And I love that quote. I absolutely love that. We have a concept called light warrior, dark warrior, and I think it's important to recognize the shadow self and sometimes lean into it, but a lot of times, like you said, you have to process those traumas. So,
yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I've recognized in my own life over the past few years is once you own your story and you are truly in touch with that side of yourself, then no one can use it against you. Once you realize, like, this is me, this is my shit. And Nick, I got to tell you, we had a conversation a month or two ago on Zoom, and I got off that Zoom meeting and my jaw was on the floor. One, with your story and things that you've overcome in your own life. But two, we had just met, and the level of just transparency, authenticity, I have not experienced that many times in my life. You just put it all out there on the table for me. I had never met you before, and I was enamored by how you did that in such a, you just fucking sacked up and told me everything that was going on in your life. So I wanted to start there by telling you what an impact it made on me, that very brief conversation that we had.
And I 100% appreciate that. And I'll tell you what it does do is it speaks to your character as well, because you'd be surprised that maybe you wouldn't be of how many people are actually taken back by that approach. What it basically does when you're that, like you said, forthcoming, let it all out, who cares? Like, this is me, take it or leave it. A lot of times it either offends people, but what it really does subconsciously is it forces them to hold up a mirror and kind of analyze self. And so there's always two versions of how that's received. And one is, like you said, like, I appreciate the hell out of it, or like, I don't really know if I like this guy because he's a little too forthcoming, and it really speaks to how far you've evolved, like, with yourself. So I think it's cool. It's always cool to hear that version of how it's received, because it's definitely hit and miss. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. And once you get to the point recognizing that you're not going to bat 1,000, so if you're batting 500, that's pretty damn good percentage right there. And the people that are like really uptight about that, or they don't like that because of how forthcoming you are, those aren't the people that you need to be talking to anyway. Or those are the people that are not ready to hear the message that everybody needs to hear it, just they're not ready yet.
Yep. Completely agree with that. Yeah.
So as we were talking, one of the things that I recognized right away was real recognizes real. And for me, being in the space of being a school leader, being a principal for many years, the kids that I connected with the most were the ones that were sent down to my office, that were doing the stupid shit in class, that they weren't playing the quote unquote game of school, where they weren't getting straight A's, they weren't following along with everything the teacher said. It was the kids that were a little bit outside of the box, that really, they had their own opinion, they had their own voice, or they were going through something really challenging. And being there to support those kids on that journey, to me, was one of the most rewarding things. But then to see what they became after they were able to go through their journey in life now is one of the most rewarding things. And I mentioned that, Nick, because as we were talking, I was thinking, damn, if I was a principal in the school, we would have known each other. I'm sure we would have had a couple of conversations. So if you wouldn't mind going back to that point in your life, so pick a spot in your middle or high school years where, you know, there was a significant thing that was going on in your life that you could bring us, like, start at some point on that journey in middle or high school, just to let us know a little bit about who you were at that time.
Yeah. So, well, fast forward, I grew up in Biloxi, Mississippi, and Dad moved out to California for work, like a year ahead of us, to like set up shop, so to speak. And so I was about 8 or 9, and we packed up the car and we drove out with my mom, myself, and I have a brother and sister. And as soon as we got there, I think we got there in July, they were divorced by October, because my dad's version of set up shop was basically find a younger, hotter version of my mom. So he had pretty much like started a new family. So parents split, that's whatever. That's like super common now. But the issue became essentially mom, I don't know if I want to go as far as to say 5150, because I'm not, I don't diagnose, but I'll tell you right now, she did have it rough, but at the same time, I feel like she failed us. She walked away when I was 14. So my brother and sister and I are all a year apart. So I'm right in the middle. So we were 13, 14, and 15. And my mom just literally like completely like abandoned us. My brother and sister blame me to some degree still to this day. A lot of it was anybody who's listening to this that was raised in the South or is being raised in the South versus like California. You might know, like, it's kind of okay to discipline your kids a certain way in the South, but if you bring that mindset or that stuff to California, it's a big no-no. So we were physically abused like really bad growing up. And we thought nothing of it. Like, I was going to school with like belt marks on my face, or hangers, or just some pretty rough beatings. And I told the teachers, like, yeah, I probably had it coming. I probably was popping off or didn't do something. Point being, CPS became a constant issue, which is Child Protective Services. And what would happen is my mom would talk her way out of it, and then I would get beat worse. Finally, this pattern was kind of like enough for me. I was 14. I thought I was a man. I hit puberty. I didn't really put hands on my mom, but I definitely defended myself in a way that she didn't like. And the next day, she pretty much walked away from all of us. And so we all went our separate ways. So I didn't see my brother and sister for quite a while. I lived in a backpack. Like, to this day, I actually have like a mindset coach, like a subconscious mindset coach. And I think I have a little over 80 something backpacks. And she laughs, and she's uncovered the fact that it's kind of like my Linus blanket, like my security blanket, because all I had was like my basics, my toiletries. So deodorant, cologne, just basically I was a professional couch surfer. I wouldn't say I was homeless in the sense that you might think. I had enough friends per se to like basically hop couch to couch. There were several nights on a park bench or, just out on a curb somewhere, but they weren't as like drastic as you might think. I wasn't eating out trash cans per se. But yeah, I was homeless from 14 to about 17 or so. And then I had a family take me in my senior year. But that was a very pivotal moment for me, because like, it changed the trajectory for like reasons you might not think. What I basically became addicted to. So I've never been a drug guy, an alcohol guy. Like, I've probably been drunk like 5 times in my life. Like, I probably haven't been drunk since senior year in high school. I'm just a kind of a control freak. Never got into drugs. I was very like, they actually would call you, that was a thing then, you probably remember this, you were straight edge, you know what I mean? So I was just very much like anti all of that. Mainly didn't have, the opportunities per se from a financial, standpoint to even resource those things. But long story short, what I got addicted to was affirmation. And this is what drastically like changed the course of my life. And so I lived the next 10 or 15 years with this massive chip on my shoulder, because I was so obsessed with people not knowing I was homeless, because kids can be cruel. Like, if there's some young guys listening to this, I'm sure like anything, is a reason to label you. So I was labeled a crybaby for about 5 years. It's actually interesting now, because that's become my superpower, my ability to like have these emotional like bandwidth, these variances. but I never cried like you would think. I literally, like, and again, somebody listen to this. If you've been in a fight and you're frustrated, like I would actually cry right before any like fist fight, like, or during the fight, like it would just be coming out. I have no reason why. Like most of my crying was frustration, sheer anger, you know, like it was just my go-to emotion because I was just emotionally like unstable. I had no real teacher in that area. But point being, like with the backpack, my senior year, you can look up my yearbook. I was actually voted best dressed, which is insane because I was homeless. But I was so obsessed with people not knowing that I put on every single facade you could think of. So I got a job pretty early. I actually got emancipated. So like that's where you divorce your parents legally. Yeah. It's pretty easy to do when your parents don't exist. You fill out some paperwork, you go down to the courthouse. If your parents no show, you literally become a legal adult in the eyes of the law. So I became emancipated well before the age of 18, which allowed me to do things like get a full-time job, and I could actually buy a vehicle, enter into contracts. Like I was 18 basically, as far as the law was concerned, because I divorced my parents.
So I'm going to pause it right there because there's so many questions that just came.
Yeah, sorry.
And one, I appreciate you sharing that with us. As you were going through that time, you mentioned from 14 years old through 17 or 18 years old, you were couch surfing. While you didn't consider yourself homeless, there were times that you really were out there on your own. Was there a person in your life that recognized that that was trying to help you through it? Was there a coach? Was there a teacher? Any adult that was like, I need to really take Nick under my wing right now to help him out because he's really struggling?
Yeah. So anyway, you guys should learn this. This is like, it's okay to cry. Like I'm a big, tough, scary dude with tattoos. Yeah, there was actually two people. One was a teacher, my Spanish teacher. So I took Spanish all 4 years of high school. And it was pretty interesting because a lot of people thought he was homosexual, like he was actually called like gay, and, the derogatory versions. And back then it wasn't as like taboo. Like you could almost get away with it. It was as common as calling somebody a bitch or something. And so it was very interesting because I actually TA'd for him as well, because he was one of the only ones that knew my personal situation. And like, he was basically like my guardian angel, like while I was in school. So I graduated with 4.3. Like I always had a pretty high IQ, and school came easy to me, like the game part of it, as you say. But it wasn't because or none of it would have happened but for this guy, because I wouldn't have like stayed on track and known what classes to take and so forth. And then I have another human being who came into my life in the form of Maria Shane, which was a good friend of mine, Matt. We're 2 days apart birthday wise. He figured out that I was couch surfing, told his parents, and that's why I say 17 and change, because they took me in my senior year, and they had a tuna can of a house, like 1,200 square feet, and they had 2 kids of their own. And so they didn't have a bedroom for me, but I slept on their couch for pretty much the remainder of my senior year. And without her, SATs, applying to college, all of these like administrative, like logistical things that you need to do to go to the next level, I was just trying to figure out where my next meal was coming from. So I had like the ability to get the grades, but I never would have amounted to anything I've been done since if these people didn't step in my life and basically provide structure and consistency, and then I just genuinely give a shit about me. You know what I mean? So yeah, those are probably those are the two, like high school pivotal. I'm living out of a backpack. People that gave a shit was Mr. Harold Acord, if you're listening, and then Maria Shane. Yeah. So.
And I appreciate you bringing us on that emotional journey, Nick. And to those of you listening right now, think about the number of individuals that you are coming into contact with on a regular basis. And that moment that you're investing in another person, to you might be this throwaway moment. You're just like, hey, how's it going? Is there anything I could do to support you? Just asking those questions of someone, especially if you notice someone is struggling, or if you know what their baseline is and they're a little bit off that baseline. Those moments that you invest in another human being, that little pebble that you're throwing into the pond can have such an enormous ripple effect. I will rejoin the story when you were talking about the need for affirmations. But my guess is these two individuals that took a chance on you were part of the reason why you're doing what you're doing today. And just, if you're listening out there, just take a minute right now, reach out to someone, show an interest in another person, especially if they're in that middle school, high school age range. That moment that you invest can have so many potential impacts on their future in a positive way. So thank you for sharing that, Nick. I really appreciate
and just to touch on that too, it could be as simple as like, hey brother, are you good?
Yeah.
Like it could be that, because that could be the tipping point for them. Or maybe they've always like seen something in you and they're willing to be vulnerable to you. Like I said, and I want to circle back to like why I touched on the fact that he was my Spanish teacher was labeled as such, was like, it came with a lot of ridicule when I started TAing for him. And he like, I got like voted student of the year because of him and all these things. And it was like, it was obvious he was paying special attention to me, but I obviously didn't see that everyone was saying, but it came with a ton of like, just ridicule, just dumb stuff that kids say. And so it just compounded the madness. But I still like, to this day, like without that particular individual stepping in, as well as Maria Shane doing everything for me that a mother should do.
Right. Absolutely.
And so, but it really was like, I didn't know he was going to be the guy. He asked me either at a time when I was super vulnerable, or I just felt like I could confide in him. And so, yeah, it could be as simple as one question to one human being at the right time, and you can completely alter the trajectory of their life. So I totally agree with that.
Absolutely. And the backpack thing, you mentioned Linus's blanket, that resonated with me. And it's going back 2.5 years as I was, in the throes of a divorce, trying to figure out my own life, and sold a house. And I was living, with my brother for a period of time, living at my sister's shore house, living with my parents as I was waiting for the house I was going to move into to be renovated. 3 kids. And for 2 months, it was like a homeless type situation. And for me, I bought a backpack, and it sounds silly, but it became like my whoopee. Like if you think back to Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton, and he has the kid. He's like, listen, Kenny, the whoopee. We got to talk about the whoopee. But to me, that was the thing, that it was this security thing for me, that I knew, like, it was okay that I fit my life into the spot as I was moving from place to place, especially as a father with 3 kids that are looking to me to guide them. So as you said that, it resonated with me. So for you was just, now you're accumulating whoopies, you're accumulating backpacks, because it has a significance to you. Like, listen, I was able to do this at this point in my life, and to come so far, and to find success to help other people. I never really mentioned that on the podcast before, the significance of the backpack had to me. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So I want to rejoin the story, Nick, when you're talking about leaving high school. You found a way to overcome a great number of obstacles that were standing in your path, with the help of adults that were really looking to support you in that way. So move on from the time that you left high school. What's the next couple of years of your life like then?
Yeah, so I went away to college. So the emancipation was like kind of strategic, because we were figuring out that you couldn't just say you didn't have parents that get financial aid. You actually had to like prove that you were basically, financially, not able to support yourself. And so it wasn't enough to just make a claim. So the emancipation, and then I had a few scholarships. I played soccer my whole life, and the grades were good. So I got school completely paid for. I went up to UC Santa Barbara. I was up there for 3 years or so. But the summer I graduated, because I was still, and I've always had these moments, I was still a shed, so to speak. I was actually stealing cars and stealing rims off of cars. And a lot of this was, initially it was to survive. It was to make money. So I like justified it. I was living on the street. But then it became like, again, affirmation. So I was like, all right, let me put some money aside so I can look cool. Long story short, I knew I was going away to college. This sounds horrible, but I literally was teaching someone else how to do what I was doing, because the guy that I was doing it for wanted like a replacement, because he knew I was disappearing to college. And it's just the way it works. It was my last time, like you see in the movies, I'm teaching an understudy, a horrible thing. And literally we got jammed up by the cops. I got away. He did not. And of course, and I don't blame him. He rolled on me, and basically I got hit harder because I had a past record doing it that they were able to prove. So I ended up with a felony. And so I would go to Santa Barbara, 2.5 hours away, 3 hours away, and then drive home every day, or every weekend I would drive home and do community service for my first year of college. And I literally had a felony record for grand theft in the state of California. So, and it's still to this day, my wife, for a while, anytime my kids are going to ask, so I've got 19, 18 and 15 and 15-year-old kids. And anytime they're going to act up or anything, she reminds them she has the bracelet from when I went to jail, to prison, and my mugshot. I look like, and my kids think I'm tough for getting, muscles and tattoos, and dad's tough, right? But picture, I'm 18 years old. just got, arrested and booked. And I'm talking like strip naked. They delouse you with the powder, the whole nine, 20 dudes in a group, and they're spraying you off. And then they take your picture. So my face is just like frightened little boy. And that forever will just be etched in my memory and now my kids' minds when they want to, cross that line that they've crossed so many times,
So that point in your journey then, Nick, that was that moment, like, okay, scared straight kind of things. You saw yourself 100%. in that way. But then you went on a journey where you were starting to follow in the footsteps of your father. When we had spoken, the male role model that you had in your life was someone who went out to the West Coast to set up shop, but while he was doing so, became this guy who you weren't very proud of as your old man. But at that time, you started to go down a similar path that he went down. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been with my wife, dude, crazy story. I didn't know this. We set this date, but today is my 15th wedding anniversary. Right now as we record this podcast. I've actually been with my wife, it'll be 24 years. So it took me 9 years to marry her because I'm not the brightest. But point being, the first 15, 16 years of our marriage, I cheated on her like several times, And so I had all these stories, like I lost my virginity to my wife. And so like I had all these stories, like, is she won? Let me go sow my wild oats. You just have all these things, and I justified the hell out of it. I was the breadwinner at the time. We had back-to-back kids, and she was, staying home pregnant, and I was out working, and it was like every story you could think of. And I literally I still to this day question why she's still here, because the work we've done over the last 4 years arguably makes sense why she's here, but the fact that she made it even that far to allow me to do this work on ourselves. And it's interesting because I have a theory that's been proven pretty true, as we've helped a lot of guys save marriages over the years, is like women have this ability to kind of marry the potential version of you. Like they really do see way far into the future, and they see what you're capable of. And a lot of times the man doesn't even see it in himself yet. And they see it, and it's almost like they hitch themselves to that wagon, and they have like a subconscious clock that starts ticking. And it's like, all right, this dude's going to come good on this version that I want, that I married. And they have like a timeline. And what I've seen is like the marriages that last is that dude eventually fulfills that prophecy. Like he becomes the man he was ultimately called to be, and that the women saw the whole time. Like they really have this uncanny gift. And so I wasn't that guy for a long time, man. And I literally probably 4.5 years ago, I was in an apartment all by myself, split up from my wife, like sleeping with Instagram models, thinking I was the fucking man. I was making well over $1 million a year. I was hardly working doing it. I had set up some pretty good business models that allowed for passive income. I still took care of everybody financially, family-wise, never stepped out on that part, but that almost, again, justified like, I'll go do what I want because my family will always be taken care of. And so I just had this crazy like moment after sleeping with a random woman, and I just broke down staring in the mirror of like how miserable I was. Like I was financially sound, but morally bankrupt. And I wasn't doing bad things anymore. I haven't stolen from anybody since I was 15 years old, 17 years old, something. But I was just making it all the wrong way. Like I owned a debt collection company. We had 23 locations nationwide, easy money. But debt collection, you can imagine, is not the highest integrity, market you could be in. I was a lawyer. I put myself through law school. Can't stand lawyers. I can't tell you how many times I was either asked to lie, thought about lying, manipulate the truth, hide some evidence, present it this way to the jury so they buy your bullshit story and get your client off. I think almost every lawyer at some point in their career is faced with the decision to lie, omit the truth, bend the truth, tweak a rule. And it was insane. I wasn't happy with anything I was doing, including where the money was coming from. You know what I mean? And so I literally I started making a change. And this was about 5 years ago.
And here's the thing, Nick, what you describe right now is, as I started the Building Men program 15 plus years ago, when I asked the young men to paint a picture of what being a man means, what they did was they painted you 5 years ago. What they thought in their heads was you needed to be bigger, faster, stronger. So Jack, you're a fucking Jack dude. You're a massive human being, right? So it looks the part. You could handle yourself physically. Then it was about the notches on the belt, how many girls you can be with, or the level of perceived attractiveness of those girls. It was like sexual conquest, and then it was economic success. How many zeros in your bank account can you accumulate the stuff? So you had all of those things.
Every single one.
It was all wrapped up in a box. And that's what I was telling to these young men. Like, it's not about that. Like, what you need to do is if you like one day achieve all those things, it doesn't mean that you're going to be happy. All it means is that you did whatever you had to do to get to that point. But true happiness, it needs to come from something inside of you, and you have to dedicate your life to do something in service of other people. Otherwise, it's self-serving, and it's more of like a narcissistic way to live. And so to me, what you did was you found a way to like shake yourself loose of that. And you mentioned the part where the female's trying to associate the man that they thought that their partner could be, or they see this potential in them. Was it at that moment that you saw your true potential as a man, where you're like, let me redefine what I want to do with my life? Was it at that moment where you looked around, or did you know back in the day what you wanted to be to become a man in that, middle high school age, and you just hadn't lived up to it yet?
Yeah, I think it was, I can tell you this, a sentence that rung in my head that my wife said to me often, which gave me hope that I could change, was that you're not a bad dude. You just keep making bad decisions. And like, I knew at my core, like I wasn't a shitty dude. Like anybody who knew me knew like, that's not a bad dude. Especially like you said, I basically went on this massive run of, let me check every box that everyone says you're supposed to check as a man. Like you said, let me get the hot wife, the kids, let me kill it in sports. Let me look jacked. Let me get a bunch of girls. Let me get a bunch of zeros in my bank. Dude, I haven't had a car under 200 grand and I don't know how long. Like, so I had all the flashy cars, like you name it, the watches. I checked every box everyone said I was supposed to check. And then I'm like, why am I still fucking miserable? Why am I miserable? And I just kept going back to like, it was just like, I call it the moment. Like until someone hits the moment where you are willing to hold up the mirror and actually say like, am I proud of this dude staring back at me? Like, am I proud of him? It's like you said, is this when I was 7 years old or whatever? And when they ask you in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, and this is not like astronaut or cowboy or whatever. This is like you said, what to you, what makes us a man? And like, I just wasn't checking any of the boxes that I thought I wanted. I was doing everything that everyone else told me to do. And it doesn't fill your cup. And there's a million stories like this. And I was like, what do I have to do differently? And then, I ran the definition of insanity through my head a million times. Like, I can't just keep doing the same shit over and over and expect a different result. I'm killing it on every level objectively, but subjectively, I can't stand myself. And so I had a gentleman, and this is another massive pivot in my life. He had me go to an event. It was called WarriorCon, Wake Up Warrior by Garrett J. White. He's out in California. It was about 1,500, maybe 2,000 dudes in a room. The first 30 seconds into that room, we were on the ground doing push-ups, facing another man that you've never met in your life, screaming, like spit talking, I'm a fucking liar.
Wow.
That was how you opened the event, right? And I was like, awkward. And I'm like, fuck this guy, who is it? But at the same time, as it's cathartic as I'm yelling at I'm like, is this dude judging me? Oh wait, he's a liar too. He's spit yelling at me. And I just started to like, I don't know, man. This is to me the sentence that changed my life forever. In a world full of liars, the truth is a declaration of war. And that was Garrett J. White on that stage. It was December. I don't remember the year. I think we're either coming up on 4 or 5 years coming up on this December. I want to say 5 years. But essentially, like I created an actual truth agreement. So I was an attorney at the time. I put myself through law school because I thought that would be something cool to do. Everyone would think I made it. And I literally created an agreement with myself where I would never tell a lie ever again. Sounds simple enough, but I can tell you that I lost everything in that process. Everything. Because then to tell your wife, so when I went down this road and I started to slowly rebuild with my wife, and she let me back, which is mind blowing to me still. We had have a conversation with your wife. If anybody here has ever cheated on your wife, have a conversation with every single girl you've ever cheated with, or tell her about them. She wanted to know positions. She wanted to know times, dates, places. Did anything happen in our bed, in our house? She wanted to know everything, and I had no ground to stand on. And as I'm delivering this information to her, I'm just watching, I'm like chopping her down like Tyson versus like nobody, right? Like just literally hit after hit after hit. And she's asking, like, keep hitting me. And And I was so obsessed with this truth mission that anything anyone asks me from this date forward, like I'll just tell them, even if it paints me in a shitty light. Because like you said earlier on this podcast, it's that Eminem 8 Mile moment. Like once I dump everything out, nobody has leverage on me ever again, ever. Yes, I have a felony. Yes, I stole a car. Yes, I like I can keep going on and on. I cheated on my wife forever. You know, it's like, look, here's all the bad shit about me. And if you don't like me anymore, cool, no problem. I'm going to go keep doing me. But I tell you what, the most powerful dude in the room is the dude with nothing to hide.
Yes.
And I was just so obsessed with this. It's been 4.5 years. I haven't told a lie. And it's like, do you lose dude, here's the thing. Like attracts like you said, real recognizes real, but unfortunately shit recognizes shit as well. And so like all my friends were cheating on their wives, every single one of them. All of us were. It was a circle of 5, 6, 7 dudes where the girls are out by the pool drinking mimosas and we're drinking scotch, literally sharing pictures of quote unquote like side pieces, they call it, like just literally bragging about this new girl we had slept with while our wives are 25 yards away in the pool. And so never ever did I walk up to someone's wife and tell them like, hey, have a conversation with your dude. Never ratted out one of my guys. That's not my story to tell, but I definitely stopped engaging and it was really easy for them to cut me off. I didn't get invited to anything ever again. Stay away from Nick. He's a cancer. He's going to expose us. Like, and that's what I was telling you earlier. Like it kind of forces people to like look at themselves when you live in this hardcore world of truth. And it can be extremely lonely, but it's also extremely, extremely validating, liberating. Like the truth will set you free. Sounds corny to some. I can't tell you how free it feels to just walk around and be like, yep, I fucked up there. Yep, I'm not that good at that. You know what? I'm not as awesome as you made it thought I was. But here's what I am. You know what I mean? Like it's the craziest feeling.
And as you were going through that life, Nick, and I recognized that I felt like I was living in an inauthentic way with my profession, what I was doing. I wasn't able to look at myself in the mirror and be proud of the person that I saw 2.5 years ago today. And I still remember the feeling that it was. And to me, it was a feeling of like someone pressing down on my chest. And like, there were times that I could not even get out of bed physically. I'm 6'4", 225. Like I'm a big dude as well. There were times that I just felt like there was this force pushing down on me that didn't allow me to get up and move because of it. And a lot of it was just this self-imposed shit that I was putting that I wasn't allowing myself to fully step into what I needed to do. So was it that same type of feeling that you had? Was there this overwhelming like dread knowing that you were living in this, like not in alignment with who you needed to be?
Yeah, and it is actually physically exhausting. Like there's actually scientific data like you're speaking about, where if you are living out of alignment with your true self, like you hear people say like, oh, I work 12-hour days, I work my face off, it's so exhausting. Like you could work 4 hours doing something that you hate or that is not in alignment, or maybe it's like goes against your core values. You'll be exhausted within minutes. But conversely, there's guys that can work 12-hour, 15-hour days back to back to back, doing what they're passionate about, that's in pure alignment with what they're supposed to be doing and who they ultimately are. And it's very exhausting. Like I can get up every day and do what we're doing now, and I can do back to back to back to back to back to back, and I'll be just as hyped on round 12 as I was round 1 because I live this and I love it. And I think what was for me was like, and this is very common, what I've seen with my men that I coach is this unworthiness is a very common like crutch right now. But usually it's like, you know, you're not living in your true self, or you still need to process some bullshit or some trauma or some literally some lies, because every dude has an ego. Every dude puffs their chest. Every dude exaggerates either whether it's their income or how much they bench, bro. Like they're just like predisposed to lying, to where their whole life has become a version of lies. And so it's very hard to step into true self, and you're always going to be exhausted, always going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine the last 2.5 years for you has just been like, you can float through anything now.
Oh,
like no one can hurt me anymore. I really don't care. You know what I mean? I hate to say like, I don't care, like I don't care like that. But it doesn't affect, you can't affect me anymore. There's really nothing you can say.
One thing that really stuck out to me on one of your social media platforms was, it was a quote underneath your handle, and it was on a journey from success to significance. And you found levels of success that most people would give their left nut for. They would think that I want to be like Nick was 5 years ago. I want to be the guy that looks a certain way, that's making bank, that can go bang whoever he wanted to bang, still had the facade of the family going on behind him. But this idea of a journey from success to significance, talk to us a little bit about what that means to you.
This was actually I don't know if it was a quote I took, but it was definitely a concept that I turned into that quote. And it was really just, for the last 4 years, like I took a major dip in income. Like, so 4.5 years ago, well over 7 figures a year in income. I had built 2 8-figure businesses between like the law firm and the collection practice, hardly working, like when I wanted to type of thing. And again, financially sound, really bankrupt. I was like, how do I actually just like, when did I feel the best? Like I can't tell you over and over how much I hated the actual debt collection industry. But I went back to like, why did I stay in it so long besides the money? The time that I loved was as I built Office 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 23, I'm bringing in young kids and I'm molding them and I'm teaching them and I'm watching them make their first like $7,000 check or $10,000 check. And then I'm showing how to be financially responsible. I've helped kids get their first apartment or car or save up for a down payment on a home. And I think like, I was like, the times that I was basically significant in another human being's life, just go back and think like what was like the all-time high, the most euphoric state I've ever felt since I've been on this planet Earth. And it's like when I am, and this goes for my kids too, if I am significant to another human being, like by changing anything or helping them in a way, or just like you said, being there, asking one question, like that to me is more fulfilling than pulling up my stupid little phone and looking at my zeros in my bank account, like 10x. And so I'm like, man, is it possible to have both? Is it possible to be significant, but also make enough money to provide the lifestyle that you've already set up for your family? And I told myself, yes, 100%. And I literally walked away from all of that, took a massive dip in income. And here we are 5 years later, I'm making close to, and I will definitely surpass what I've ever made before. And all I do is wake up every day and help dudes be better dudes. That's it. I just help guys. We help them get jacked if they want to get jacked. If you want to lose weight, great. It's not about being jacked. It's about just weaponizing your body so you can actually throw the ball with your kids after working a 10-hour day. It's about being confident with your body so you can go close the $1 million deal. It's about being present with your wife and your kid. Like there's so much more. The money is literally the last thing we ever discuss. Like we just literally park it to the side because they're like, hey, Nick, I did these other things and then the money started coming. That's like the most common scenario that we see now. So
at the very beginning, I mentioned that you were the CEO of the program. And those of you that are watching this, and I'll post this up on Instagram as well, a couple of clips and on YouTube, but tell us about the program, what it is.
Yeah, it's essentially, I've been in like the coaching arena for a few years, but I was always working with somebody, like filling their event and like assistant coaching. And I was working with a gentleman who's my mentor. I'll shout him out, Mr. Nick Long. He's definitely changed my life over the last 5 years. And we were working on this project called the Multiple Club, and we were only taking guys that were doing 8 figures. Like that was where he was. And only because like his initial or ultimate mission with that and vision was to scale their companies and then sell them. Like he sold several companies for several $1 million. That's like what he does. But I was taking the initial applications and I was denying 80-90% of them because these guys were still stuck at like 6 trying to get to 7, maybe 7 trying to get to 8. Like they were still in that initial stage of entrepreneurship, some solopreneurs, and I was like, man, there's a need in the market for this. I'm seeing it firsthand. So I went out on my own with my mentor's blessing. He's actually been a huge supporter. He speaks at some of my events. And essentially the program is about taking guys. I think it's a much harder gap to cover that. Like I learned how to make, 50 grand, 80 grand, maybe 250 grand, but I've yet to crack that 7-figure secret. And to me, what I've noticed over the years, having built a few 8 figures and been around a bunch of 9, 10-figure guys, once you get to 7, it's really just wash, rinse, repeat. It really is. And it's up to the entrepreneur. If you get to 7, you really want to go to 8, go ape shit. It's just systems, processes, and scaling at that point. But that gap from 6 to 7 figures is so difficult. So the point is, all that to say, we sell this message of like financial success because that seems to be the only thing that gets everyone's attention. And then anybody who's been to an event will tell you, we have this marketing strategy, which is show them what they want, but give them what they need. So when they show up, our mantra, our 4 pillars are family, fitness, focus, and finance. We don't even touch finance till like the last day of the last hour of we literally ask like, what's your relationship like with the kids? How often are you having sex with your wife? Do you date your wife? When's the last time you went on a date night with your wife?
Yeah.
How do you feel right now in your body? Take everything off right now. Get in that cold ass water. No, strip down completely. Boxers. Let's see it. Does it feel weird right now? Everyone stare at you? But so we basically like, it's very much like a Navy SEAL psychological boot camp methodology to then showing them when you fix all of this stuff that you've been putting aside, because everyone says, when I make $1 million, then I'll have time to date my wife. Then my kids will respect me, or then I'll make it to their soccer games. Then I'll make time for the gym. I just got to get my money in order. Fuck that. It's never been about that. I can hand 10 dudes right now 500 grand and a strategy to make 7 figures for the rest of their life. You know how many dudes will actually get there? One, maybe. And then if his core values aren't in alignment with his ability to follow the plan, he'll still blow them. Because it's not about the business plan. Every single thing out there, mastermind, they sell strategies, blueprints, frameworks, secrets to success, hacks. Fuck that. If the dude is not ready to run a multi-million-dollar thing, if he's not ready to even make 6, if he's not ready to, if his house is burning down because his wife wants to leave him and his kids don't respect him and he's 40 pounds overweight, if he hates everything about himself, I don't give a shit what blueprint you give him. He'll never make it. And if he does, easy come, easy go, he will lose it just as fast. So we're building sustainable wealth and we're trying to build legacy. We're literally trying to change generational trees, break generational curses. Like we process trauma more than we do anything because that's what's leaving most of these dudes stuck is really just their mindset. So I don't know if I explained that well, but long story short, like we focus on the businessman and trust me, we have the business plan knocked out as well, you know?
What you described was Dennis Meralda 2.5 years ago. Like the 40 pounds overweight, like everything there was me. So I appreciate that. One thing that really struck me there too, Nick, was that idea of give the guy 500 grand and see what happens. If it's about the destination, if it's about getting to the finish line or the 7 figures or whatever it is, like if the achievement is what's motivating you, it doesn't ever work. What you need to do is like figure out who do you need to become to achieve that. Like it's more about becoming the man that is able to do that. And then once you're like, what do I need to do? I need to be confident. I need to be motivated. I need to be self-disciplined and be that. Make it about that, being that. And then the achievements, like they will stack up. And then it's the journey that you're on and you're going to appreciate because you are that person that sticks up for the little guy. You're the person that does the right thing when no one's watching. You're the person who it's about the significance rather than the success, and the success will follow.
I think the easiest way I've been able to like sum it up, like us versus them, everyone out there is selling a to-do list. What we sell is a to-be list. And when's the last time anybody, if ever, has written out an actual to-be list? Everyone's just, again, all I did was wake up and check boxes, man. Let me get the house, the wife, the money, the car, the tattoos, the muscles, cool. I checked every box, but I wasn't being my authentic self. I wasn't being the person capable of sustaining all of that growth. Quite the opposite. I was burning and building. That's the common cycle of most entrepreneurs. They get a secret framework, they build something and they burn it to the ground. Self-sabotage, unworthiness, house is on fire. There's a million reasons, but nobody has ever sat down and wrote a to-be list. Everyone's obsessed with a to-do list. And it's got to change. And I'm telling you right now, we've created 11 millionaires, cool, but that doesn't mean shit to me unless they maintain that.
Right.
Like it's a cool feather in your cap. I'm going to keep creating wealth, but I want guys that, I'm more proud of the marriages we've saved, the pounds that we've shed, the confidence we've built, the mindset, the relationship with their children that we've salvaged, if not just strengthened. Like those text messages that I get, again, the same as when I was significant in someone else's life. Those are just, it's an actual dopamine release in my body versus like, hey bro, I cracked my first mill. Cool. I love it. What's going on with the wife? Did you date her this week? What's going on with babies? Did you make it to all their games? You know what I mean? Like it's something has to change,
Building men of character, integrity, strength, compassion, and empathy through transformational mentoring, coaching, and motivational speaking is our mission here at Building Men. To work with me as a one-on-one life coach, you can find information in the show notes, or you can visit our website at buildingmen.io, where you can book a free 30-minute discovery call to help you become the strongest version of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Now, back to the show.
One of the things that I talk about frequently is the idea on our deathbeds, there's certain things that we'll look back on and say, wow, I wish I spent more time playing with my kids, building relationships with people. I wish I took more risks in my life. And one of the biggest things is I wish I did something to leave a legacy. And that's what you're doing, Nick. You are absolutely leaving a legacy behind you that people can emulate. And it's one of those things where, I mean, this is a movie. I'm going to go watch this. So who's going to play you when this gets released? Because as I listen to this journey and the other conversation we had, man, it's such a feel-good story because it wasn't about like recognizing went from rags to riches, and then emotional rags to emotional or significant riches.
Yeah.
I'm like Ben Affleck, maybe. I'm trying like.
Yeah, I don't know who. I have no idea who it would be. I'm drastically trying to alter my physique because as I step into my 40s, I just turned 41. I'm realizing like 240 and like I've done my share of steroids in my 25 to 35 year range. I used to do the competition bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just starting to realize like one of the main questions I ask myself, and I would encourage any listener to ask them anytime you engage in any activity is like, does this serve me? Like serve me, not serve like the projection I want the people to think of me or certain, you see what I'm saying? So it's like, I've had this stigma of being this like kind of like bigger, hopey weightlifting type of figure. And there's definitely some pros to it, but it's starting to not serve me functionality wise. My son, I played soccer for like a very long time. My son is very high level soccer, like MLS tryouts type of stuff. He's only 14 or 15 now, just turned 15. But point being, I'm finding myself not even be able to like kick a ball with him anymore because I get winded or like, my hamstrings are so tight because I just did legs, bro. Like I just, so point being like, I'm trying to really alter. I'm running like a 5K almost every day right now. I'm trying to be more functional. So don't be surprised if you see me drop 40, which I think would definitely change whoever would play me. Right now it would be like that. But yeah, it's just crazy. And the thing about that too is I was doing that, I would argue a lot of it was so much insecurity and doing it for everyone else's affirmation. Like you said, I checked the boxes. They say, go get muscles, cool. Got muscles. Get tattoos, cool. Get cars, cool. But it doesn't serve me anymore. And I'm okay if people say, oh, Nick got small. Oh, Nick's a runner now. Or Nick, like, dude, cool, man. I'm happy. I'll tell you that. I'm functional, so that's what I'm working on.
Because it's not about the affirmation of what those other people think you need to do. You're doing it to serve your, to be the best father you can be.
The best version of me. And if that version, needs to go play soccer with his son for an hour and a half, and Amen. I say, oh, sorry, son, I'm cramping up. Like that's not okay with
me. Absolutely. Final two questions. Like first is, when we started the interview, you talked about what was going on with you from 14 to 17 years old. You were emancipated. You were couch surfing. You had the whoopee, the backpack. If you were to go back and talk to that kid, like what's something that young Nick needed to hear that would have helped him in his life?
I think the two words I would have told myself was "you're enough." I think everyone needs to understand that you were born like good enough. So maybe you're good enough. You could even add to that, but like. I think a lot of people think, and I think it's even tougher for the young kids now because it's comparisonitis. They wake up every day and the first thing they do is go through social and they're following people that they want to be like, but they're also subconsciously comparing themselves to them, telling themselves like, well, I can't be that buff or that rich or that this young kid on YouTube or TikTok made 4 million doing this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just like a constant battle with your internal self that you don't need to put yourself through. I think, someone told me this story a long time ago and it resonated hard, and I've repeated it at a couple of events. It might actually be on my social, but like imagine you're a year old, right? And your mom's pushing you in a stroller like through the mall. I don't know if malls are still a thing nowadays, but your mom's like just pushing you in a stroller. And just think like realistically, how many different people come up, like moms especially, and be like, oh, he's adorable. How many moms would say he's perfect? Like they would say that. They would say, you're perfect. You're 1 year old. And mind you, you're still like shitting diapers and drooling. And like but here's the thing, you haven't accomplished anything yet. You haven't won the big game. You haven't got the 4.0. You haven't found the hot girl, the muscles, you haven't done anything. You haven't checked a single box. And you're being described constantly day in, day out as perfect. And to me, that was very heavy because it was like, I've attached my self-worth to accolades and attributes and accomplishments and so much that it's like, I didn't think I was good enough until I checked every box. And then I realized, you know what? I'm kind of shitty over here, but I'm actually really good at all these things. And no one even knows that about me because I presented myself in a way that society says I have to in order to be successful. You know what I mean? And I would say you're good enough would probably have changed my life because I had a lot of worthiness issues, especially like, well, I'm homeless. He's not. I'm never going to make it. Or, why did my mom have to leave me? Or why did, so.
I love that piece of advice. The final question that I like to ask on the podcast is, if I'm some random person listening right now and I hit pause or I hit stop on this episode, and there's one thing that I can do right now that it's an immediate thing. I can do this thing. It could either be a physical habit, it could be a mindset shift, it could be something emotional, whatever it is. What's one thing that I could do right now that by doing this thing, it could really alter my future, alter the trajectory of my life?
Add value to one human being's life before you put your head on the pillow. That's it. That's my number one rule in life. And you're not even allowed in my household to go to bed unless you have added value to another human being.
Love that.
And it could be as easy as, oh shit, I forgot, I'm about to crash. Let me send a nice voice note. Or let me just send a text and check in on somebody. Or, hey, bro, I haven't talked to you in a year. How's the wife and kids? Hope everything's good with you. You just came across my mind. Like that will go miles with somebody who needed to hear it right then. But during the day, if you could be intentional from the minute you wake up to go to bed and you hold the door open for elderly, or you or help her with her groceries, or just lean into, like, you know, like one of my favorite things to do is I see these young kids at the gym and they're doing it all wrong and they're still like taking videos of themselves bench pressing and shit. And like with tact, I'll go up to them, because I wish someone would have came up to me, and if, like, you know, the whole sentence of I knew then what I know now, like what if I could just help a kid a little bit? Anyway, so like, yeah, man, if you add value to another human being, this is another critical one. AA has been around since the 1920s. So they've actually just eclipsed 100 years in business, right? And Alcoholics Anonymous. And if anybody has ever been, I'm not even an alcoholic, but I just know because you've seen enough like TV shows, etc. Maybe you know an alcoholic, no biggie. Check this out. There are 12 steps. Does anybody know what the 12th step is? Like the 12th step, and they know this from years of studies and science and everything. If you do 11 steps, there's about a 92% chance you will become an alcoholic again or remain an alcoholic. You will not recover if you do steps 1 through 11. Step 12 is help another alcoholic. Help another human being. There's so many things that happen neurologically, chemically, when you put yourself in a position to help another person. And by helping that other person, you level up your own accountability, because now you are setting the standard. You are giving them permission. So if you start drinking again, they have permission to drink again. But conversely, by helping them, when you hold them and you continue to pull them out of their habits and their pit of despair or pain or whatever they're going through, you are constantly keeping yourself in a state of winning. So helping another person, adding value to another human being, for me, if you start doing that now to the day you die, and don't ever expect anything in return. If I could drop one book reco in this, it would be Go Giver by Bob Burg. Go Giver to me is it's in my top 3 for the rest of my life. And it's this concept of just give. Never have an expectation of reciprocation. Just give till it fucking hurts. It's the best feeling in the world, and you will win. The universe will notice this and you will win.
The mic drop moment right there. I absolutely love this conversation, Nick. I would love to have you back on. I'd love to have my son as my co-pilot here, to interview you again in a couple months and see what you've been doing on your journey. But until then, Nick, where can the audience find you?
Yeah, reprogram.ai is our landing page. We don't never spend $1 on marketing. I kind of get weird at this point when people say I can plug my deal. Like, yeah, I don't know if it makes sense. Check us out. I mean, the event's $0. You come out to an event. Like everyone that comes says, oh, it's life changing. And if you sign up and you want to hang out with us for 6 months or a year, great. If not, no big deal either. Like we literally are like, we're operating from this crazy place of just help everybody. And if they see value in what you're doing, then they'll sign up and hang out with you. Yep. And if everyone just approached things that way, like instead of like trying to hit these closing percentages and these KPIs, like we just try to lean in the dude. So if you're a dude and you need help, hit me up. Like we'll make it make sense. So, and to someone who basically has embodied everything that we talked about in Building Men, like you went down that the one path, recognize that this is not the path that I want to be on, and have the courage and the fortitude to, one, look at your demons in the face, understand that the quote that you said, in a world full of liars, the truth is a declaration of war, stood out to me. Taking it all the way in the other direction, the pendulum swung all the way back to where understanding that the greatest moment that you could possibly spend in your life is the moment in service of another human being. Yep. So for Nick Alfano, I wanted to truly appreciate your contribution on the podcast. This was one of my favorite conversations that I've had with another person. Just like it was so raw and real, and it helped me really look inside through the journey that I've been through as well. So I really appreciate it. Also, for the Building Men audience, check out our sponsors, FTR Apparel, for all things Building Men, our gear, our shirts, our hats, and Become Stronger Industries, the makers of handmade steel maces, hammers, and other badass equipment. For the audience, go one step further than you thought you could go
We'll see you next time on Building Men.